Hey, teachers. So, in this episode, we are talking to Rika Whelan, a former ECE teacher turned educational consultant who has started focusing on helping schools get this eradicate gossip. So, I like to think of her as the gossip guru, and she is going to give us tons of value today. So, I am so excited. Rika, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I am great. I am super pumped to be here. I love the fact that we're in two different countries, different time zones, and we get to chat on Zoom. I love it.
I know, right? Like it's the magic of technology. I'm so happy we're living in a time when we can do this because I've met so many incredible people being able to do this, as I'm sure you have as well. I didn't mention the name of your podcast, but what is the name of your podcast?
Yes, I have a podcast that's actually unrelated to, I do actually include the topic of gossip in there as well, but the podcast name is Women of Faith in Leadership. So feel free to go and check it out on Apple. I do talk a lot about gossip and workplace culture. It's one of the pillars of my podcast as well. So yeah.
Okay, cool. So I just want to start off, maybe if you can tell us about like the beginning of your journey and maybe was there a specific event that sort of caused you to shift into something different?
Sure, thank you. So I basically my journey with gossip, if I can start there, is the fact that I was the gossiper. I was the person who started my journey as just graduated from university in South Africa, and I started at a school. It was my first ever job. I was a year 3 teacher, and it was the norm to be a gossiper. Everyone did it, and it was a really mean culture as well. There were some female dominated industry, as we all know it to be. But yeah, it was just brutal and I didn't like it, but I kind of engaged in it. So I was definitely not innocent in that sense. But I moved to a different school and the culture there was much different. So people didn't gossip as much. They did, but they not gossip as much. And I picked up the difference in toxicity of the workplace culture immediately. And I was like, ooh, this is interesting. I actually really like the fact that people get along. There's only really one or two people who would gossip about each other, but that's because they had a personal issue. It wasn't a whole team teacher issue. And it was interesting to me, but I didn't think about it too much, like what could be the reason behind that or anything like that. I didn't, but I just didn't engage in gossip because my peers didn't. So,
Exactly. It wasn't a
yeah,
common thing to do. Whereas when everybody's
yeah.
gossiping, you just kind of naturally fall into it. It's hard not to naturally fall into it.
Oh, absolutely. And if it's the norm, this is the way workplace culture works. It is those unwritten rules. You come into a workplace and like no one will tell you what it's like to work there. They'll tell you about the
Mhm.
curriculum. They'll tell you about the extracurricular activities that you'll be involved in, but they don't tell you about the culture of what you're moving into. And that's it's unwritten rules because you just don't know.
Yep.
And yeah, so it was interesting. But then I moved to Australia and I turned over a new leaf. So, moving countries was a big deal. Immigrating is a big deal. And although we wanted to do it, it was still very, very tough. But I was in a workplace where I was very the toxic workplace culture. Oh my goodness. It was like 10 times what it had been in my very first job.
Wow.
And I just couldn't believe it. I was just so shocked. We're working with little children. So I was then working not in a school, but in a daycare setting. And we were working with kindergarten, so 3 to 4 year olds. And I could not believe the adults, the way that they spoke in front of the children about what they had done on the weekend and about this one and that one, and just, foul language. And it was just, I was in shock. I had a culture shock, really, to be honest. And I
Hmm.
decided purposefully not to engage in any of that because I felt a moral shift within me that this is not okay. And so that really put me in a position of becoming a victim of gossip. So I moved from being the gossiper into a
Right.
victim of gossip because I refused to engage with these people. And obviously that made me a big target because
Right.
I'm now a foreigner. I struggled to understand the different accents that people were
Yeah.
speaking because
And
my brain just
the lingo,
that.
right? Because I
Yes,
know I lived in Australia, so
absolutely.
the lingo is very different. The of
Yes.
words that they're using. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a tough time, I will not lie. I stuck it out though, because I didn't want to, a new country, new job, you kind of like, I just didn't want to jump ship immediately. And I wasn't sure
Yeah.
that I was going to secure another job. So myself, like many other people out there, they stay in those toxic environments because they think they don't have a choice. They
Yep.
think it's the norm and they think it's okay. And so I didn't think it was okay, but I stuck it out. And so it was a really tough 4 years of my life. And
Okay.
thank goodness we moved. So due to my husband's job, we moved. And so fast forward a couple of years, I went into a leadership role myself. And I vowed to myself that my team would not be gossipers and I would not tolerate gossip in my workplace.
Yeah.
And whenever I thought about that, it always came back to those leaders. When I started unpacking, that first school I worked at, the leadership, the second school I worked at, that leadership, that daycare that I worked at, the leadership, what was the leadership? And the leader, and it all boils down to leadership. What does the leadership team tolerate? What do
Yes.
they accept as the norm? And this is a big issue for employees, because if the leadership team is gossiping or if they're part of the problem, it just filters down.
Oh my gosh, the amount of leaders I've worked with who are the worst gossipers, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I worked in a school where the principal would gossip to me about the head of academics, and you're just
Oh,
like, how, right?
what?
And then how do you fix that? If the leadership is
Yeah.
allowing it to be normal and okay, it's
Mm.
incredibly like difficult for the staff to move away from it, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Because the thing is, as employees, we aim to please our leaders. That's what we want to
Yes.
do. And so, if you go against the grain of what your leaders are doing, and I've done that in one school, I spoke to the leadership team about the discipline, about the fact that the school had just let go of all the discipline. Oh boy, that was the worst thing I could have ever done. Speaking as an employee, a teacher, that was
Yeah.
that year three, being a year three teacher. How dare I speak to to the deputy principal about the discipline of the school? And I was targeted 100%. I was targeted after that, and that's the reason why I left. So no, it's very, very tough. But as a person who was in this leadership position, I made a decision. Now, unfortunately, I headed a department with about 50 people. So it was definitely a big job.
Yeah.
It wasn't my very first leadership role, but this was like the biggest leadership role I'd ever done. Because like I mentioned, I fast forwarded a couple of years.
Right.
So it took me about a year to eradicate that gossip. Okay, I will not lie, it was not easy. I spoke to multiple different leaders. I watched so many different videos. I spoke to so many different principals, head of departments, like anybody I could just get my hands on, but nobody had an answer. Everybody had like,
Wow.
oh, I think I might suggest this, but this is kind of worked for us, but as soon as somebody new comes in, then we have to start that all over again. So
Right.
I was just with my hand in my hair, really. And like I said, it took me a year, but through that year, I came up with what is now known as the respect framework, which is my framework that I follow and that I teach other leaders on how to eradicate gossip successfully. And it works. It works. Now, every single person who I've shared this framework that has worked with me, they've eradicated gossip and they've actually able to pass that. And, their employees are sending me messages to say, thank you so very much, because I've never experienced a workplace where there's no gossip. Thank you. And yay, that makes me
Yeah.
so excited.
That's amazing. So was there something like you mentioned, like you talked to principals, you watched the videos. Was there something
Yes.
that you finally saw that you're like, okay, wait a minute, this could work. This is where I can start. Was it a video or did you speak to someone, or like how did you finally get that aha moment where like, okay, I'm going to start here?
Mm. Well, I think the aha moment for me was when I realized that it starts with the leadership team.
Okay.
So that was the biggest aha moment for me, because when I was speaking to a principal, one of the principals that I was speaking to, she said to me, Rika, you have to work with your leadership team. Your leadership team are your most crucial people in everyone. Your employees are important too, but your leadership team, they are your go-to team. You have to let them in, because I was starting to feel as if I had to start justifying things to my leadership team.
Right.
And I was feeling frustrated that I was in that position. And she challenged me on that. And she said, well, hold on. You're not justifying anything to your leadership team. You have to let them in. These people are there to help you. And that, when it clicked for me in that space, I was like, okay, maybe I need to get my leadership team on board with eradicating gossip as well. And then that will filter down to all the other employees. And I gathered the leadership team and I said, look, guys, I'm on a mission. Like, I don't know if you guys agree with me. There were some leaders, I will be honest, that had to go out of their own decision, because they didn't agree with that. It was something that they struggled with, and we parted with peace, basically.
Yeah.
But the leadership team had to get on board. And as soon as I had the leadership team on board, I realized that, oh my goodness, this leadership team of mine have got more influence over my employees than what I do.
Yeah.
This is crucial. So for any leader out there, if you don't have a leadership team, or if you're I mean, we're talking to teachers here, but if you are a head of a department, or you're a head of a year, or you're the vice principal or the deputy principal, it's so crucial. You need to have a leadership team, because if you want to make a change in your school, or in your daycare, or in your preschool, or anywhere that you are at the moment in the world, you need to have a leadership team on board. That is your most crucial asset.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because they're like the ones on the ground, right? They're the ones
Absolutely.
that are liaising directly with your staff. And especially if the leadership team engages in gossip, they are going to, like we said before, cause the staff to think that that's okay. And also feel maybe that they kind of have to do that because the leadership team does that. So then did you give the leadership team things to talk about with the staff, or then did you approach the staff yourself?
So it was a collective effort. What I had done is I spoke to the whole team. It was really tricky to get the whole team together, because they were spread across 5 classrooms, and a lot of them were casual staff as well, so a lot of relief staff. But I felt it was crucial. You can not only get your permanent team on board, you have to get your relief staff on board as well. Now, that sounds like a nightmare to a primary school who might have 200 relief staff on their on their list, because I've worked in the education sector. I know that that's the reality.
Yeah.
But so I had about 50 people in total at any point in time. But over the 5 years, I've had nearly about 250 people who came through the doors. But I said to them, look, this is going to be one of the most crucial meetings that you're ever going to attend. Please, if you can attend this meeting. I gave them 6 weeks notice, which I wanted to do it tomorrow, but I realized, no, I had to give them 6 weeks notice. I had to stress over the weeks how crucial it was that they attend. I kept it kind of mysterious so that
that's good.
Curious. Yeah. So that they were curious. The leadership team knew, and they were encouraging their teams and anybody who was a relief staff to come. You don't want to miss this. It's going to be so good.
Nice.
And so then as a collective, so what we had done is we held a panel discussion. And we talked about the detrimental effects that gossip is having on our team. We made it super relevant. The lack of productivity, time management, the fact that we're constantly bickering with each other. The fact that, we find that I'm having to spend a lot of time mediating conflict. So we made it super relevant. We used a lot of examples without naming any names. And we opened up the discussion to anybody else and said, okay, well, what are your thoughts on that? And people started standing up and saying, yes, thank you so much. This is awful. I don't like coming to work when this happens. Or, another person said, well, I don't want to get out of bed because I had a conflict with this person yesterday and I don't know how to face them today, So super relevant, make it super relevant. You start with the whole team first. And then from there, you want your leadership team, because remember, then they're the ones that are on the floor, on the ground with the rest of the team. Because as a principal or as a leader, you're not. I mean, that's the reality of it. You know, you as a principal, which is kind of the role that I was in where I was at, but in South Africa. So in South African terms, it would be like a school, like a principal. But in where I was at, it was called a director.
Okay.
And so, I mean, the role is that you're not expected to be in the classroom all the time, right? But your teachers and your leaders are.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's so crucial that I met up with them on a fortnightly basis. And I parted the vision, and then they had to go and share that vision as a positive and as a make it into the norm. So, and like I said, you know, it took a year. But after that year of, you know, casting vision the whole time on the team and, you know, sharing tips and tricks on conflict management and, you know, creating a culture of feedback where feedback is normal and not seen as negative, because that's, you know, as teachers, we have to once a year sit through, you know, our heads of department coming into our classroom, you know, viewing one of our lessons or, you know, things like that. And then we only get that feedback once a year. So we see it as a negative. We normalized it. We normalized things like that.
Right.
And whenever then someone new came in and they tried to gossip, my employees, not me, not even the leadership team, but the employees would say, hold up, this is a no gossip zone. We don't gossip here. That's not welcome. And that was amazing. Like,
yeah, that's amazing. I wanted to ask you, can you give us an example maybe of one or two strategies for like, what would you say, like for conflict management, or what are some of the things that your team learned, like just like you just did with like, we don't gossip here. What are some of the things that you taught them to do?
Sure. So with conflict management, the thing that I taught my team and that I vow by because it works so well is you need to understand, why are we having this conflict? Okay. Is it because we're having a difference of opinion? Okay. Because difference of opinion is completely allowable. Are we, do we have different goals in mind? So for a good example of that, that came up during that time is we had a teacher and an assistant who was working in the same class. And they had a conflict over something, but it was purely because, there's a fly here, apologies.
It's okay.
They had a conflict because they had different goals in mind. So, for example, the teacher wanted to achieve this with the curriculum, but the assistant had seen yesterday, because we followed a very child-led early childhood space. So the assistant had said, oh, this child was interested in this topic yesterday. I think we need to extend that today. But the teacher had said, well, we can't do that because we have to meet these curriculum requirements. We have to do the assessment by the end of the month. So we have to do this curriculum. So both very valid points. We child led, but we also have curriculum that we have to do. So they had a conflict over that. But actually all that it was is it wasn't personal. Well, it was not that this one didn't like that one. It wasn't because this one said that one was ugly or, you know, whatever, or mean or something. It was literally they had different goals. And when they identified that they had different goals, they were like, okay, how can we come to an arrangement where both of us can meet our goal? So let's do the curriculum work first. And if we're done with the curriculum work, we can follow up on the child-led play. And so that's that. And then the other thing is the difference in culture. Or difference in background. So those are the three things. If you want to manage conflict better, is if you've got a different background or a different culture from the person who you're having a conflict with, you have to realize that the way we were all raised are different. Every single person in this whole world was raised by different parents. Yeah. Even my 3 children are being raised differently. Although, yes, we have the same discipline, but my first child and my third child are definitely not handled in the same way. And I think any parent will understand that, you know. It's just so funny how that works, but it is the truth. And so some things that my 12-year-old might do will be different from what my 6-year-old might do. Right. And that is just different. And it's the same for us as teachers. When we're having a conflict with someone, and I'm from South Africa, but the other person's from Australia, we have to realize that there's a big cultural difference here, and that this might cause conflict. So talk about your differences, talk about why is it that you have these differences, what is it that you grew up believing, and how can you come to a happy medium with that? So yeah, those three things I found are extremely valuable. Yeah.
I see. So if I were in a conflict with someone from with a different culture, different background, you want to actually ask them, like, how were you raised to see this subject? How are you? So actually opening those lines of communication instead of just being like shutting down and being like, okay, well, fine, and moving away, right? Because now you're going to go talk about it to someone else. Whereas if you take the time to understand, that's actually one of my favorite lines out of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So first understand
absolutely.
where the other person is coming from before you push your own agenda out there, and then say, okay, so, and also to repeat back, right? So what I'm hearing you say is this, am I right? And okay, now this is where I'm coming from. So let's see if we can put it together to make a solution. So I think it's really that communication, right? I'm hearing it's really the communication skills that are so big.
So, and just reiterating what you're saying about communication skills, because often what we do when we're in a conflict with someone is we listen to defend ourselves. We don't listen to understand. So we just need to change our mindset a little bit there. Don't listen to defend yourself. Listen to understand, and then to communicate back to that person. Okay, I like literally like you just said, okay, what I'm hearing from you is X, Y, and Z. Is that correct? And how can we work together better on this? Because, we're all adults, but sometimes we don't act like it. Sometimes, we have to, as leaders, we mediate more conflict between adults than what we do the children as teachers. And so as adults, if we can start learning these communication skills and mastering them and actually teaching the children these valuable communication skills as well, then they're going to be better adults when they're, in a couple of years' time as well. It's actually, as teachers, we are there to teach. We're not there to be perfect, but we're there to teach them. So, yeah.
No, I absolutely agree. I was just thinking about that because when you have the conflict, when you have the words, right, that you can use to manage conflict or to manage a tricky situation, you are in a much better position to give those words to your students and to help them actually understand. And when you don't give them those words, if they don't learn conflict resolution either, then their go-to is either to fight, to argue, to shout, or to walk away and be mean behind your back, right? Because they haven't been given those tools. So I think it's actually going to have such a, I know there's a more proper term for it, but like a knock-on effect, as it progresses down. Definitely. I think that's absolutely brilliant. So is your vision to, like, what is your big picture vision with this business?
For me, the big picture is to create such great awareness about the detrimental effects of gossip on individuals that people will just stop it in their tracks. Because if you really think about the detrimental effects that gossip is having on individuals, it's that it's major mental health problems that people are experiencing. And the reason why mental health is now so more prominent than any time in history is because of social media. It's because of I'm so sorry.
Fly. No,
I have to cut this out. Oh, this fly is so annoying.
I'll cut it out. You need one of those, like, those
spotters.
But the ones that are electric.
Oh, the electrical ones. Yeah, I want to just get him away because he's going to continue.
No problem. We can cut this out. No problem. Go for it.
Okay, great. Oh, now he's gone again. Okay, never mind. Okay.
It's fine. I mean, we can. It's easy to cut it out. So
cut it out. Yeah. Oh, sorry about that.
No problem. No problem at all.
That's not the last thing I was expecting.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I forgot my reactions once and put like confetti or balloons up during my thing. So anyway, okay.
I'll continue on the mental health piece.
Perfect.
The reason why mental health is so prevalent now is because of social media. It's because of digital media. People are more aware of things that are going on in the world. And when you are subjected to gossip at at a school or in any workplace environment for that matter, we go on social media afterwards and we just see how perfect other people's lives are. We see their highlight reels, because people don't share their bloopers on social media. They only share the highlight reels. And so we feel like it's our fault. This is our fault. And we don't have a perfect life. And we start falling into that space of depression. And it can be really bad for people, to fall into that space where they think that they think they're worthless, they think they're not good enough. And things like gossip can absolutely attribute and just add fuel to the fire of that mental health piece. So we should definitely not take that for granted. But the other thing is reputation. So a person's reputation can really seriously be damaged because of gossip. We don't actually realize how bad someone's reputation can be damaged simply because of words that we say about them to another person. And, just recently spoke to someone who they were going through something personal, and they had told one other person who they trusted most at work about something that's going on in their personal life. This person that they trusted divulged it to a lot of other people. And all of a sudden, this person's reputation is now at stake at work because of something that's going on in their personal life. It's not affected their work ethic. They're still doing their work. They're still coming to work on a daily basis. They're doing the right thing by calling in sick if they need to, getting a doctor's note if they need to. However, because of that one person who decided to divulge what was going on in that other person's personal life, now everybody has a different picture of that person. And so we shouldn't gossip, because it can really ruin a person's reputation. It can also mean that person, if they go to a different job, because let's be honest, the education space is a really small space. People know people. It's a small world out there.
Yeah.
And principals call each other and they say, oh, I see this person from your school has applied for a job here. And then there's this whole gossip story going around, and leaders are included in that. Then that person can never get that job. So, it's just so detrimental.
Absolutely. And it affects your mindset so much as well, right? Like, it's exactly why I went into mindset coaching for teachers, is to help people see that you have power over your mindset. So you have the power to not engage. You have the power to not say anything, or to keep, to rather focus on discussing maybe the positive side of what happened, or just to listen. Like if someone came to you, right, you have that control, in order to, because like you said, gossip actually affects you as well, right? It's, what do they say? It's like feeding someone poison, but then you get sick, something like that.
Yes.
There's a term for it,
I've
right?
heard that saying before.
Yeah. And I just feel, I think that's just amazing that you're going in. Do you go into the corporate space as well?
Yes, I've just actually started reaching out to the corporate space as well. So education sector has been successful. And then because I come from the education space, that's my comfort zone, that's my jam. But I have started feeling an urge to try and get into the corporate spaces as well, because through market research and so many people that I've spoken to, everyone's desperate to get rid of gossip, but they don't know how.
Yeah.
They just don't know the how. And through speaking to multiple leaders in different industries, they say, well, their objections are, well, I don't really have the time to deal with this because I've got my own work to do. And, every single time I have to mediate, it's taking more of my time. So I'll just continue mediating. I'll not deal with the gossip. I don't have the time. The other objection that leaders have is they think that it can't be eradicated. So they just think, look, every single workplace I've ever been at has gossip, so I'll just have to manage it, just deal with it. And in particular in the corporate space, where there's a lot of workplace bullying occurring, and I'm not saying this is in every corporate environment or in every organization, but it can be quite bad. And, I've spoken to multiple males and females who agree that in the corporate space, there can be quite a lot of bullying going on. And then there's a lot of gossip that stems from the bullying as well. And in essence, gossiping is a form of bullying because you purposefully know that you're gossiping about that person. Innately, everyone who I speak to knows that it's wrong to gossip.
Yes.
Every single person who I've spoken to, we all know that. But for me, I got a rise from it. So that's why I know it was fun for me to gossip about other people. I can admit that because I was in that space. So I completely understand it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people were in that space and are in that space.
Exactly. So yeah, but you can make just reiterating what you're saying, it's a mindset thing. You can absolutely change your mind and say, well, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to engage in this anymore because it's not good for me, not good for my reputation, not good for that reputation, but it can also ruin that person's mental health.
Yeah. Just before I get into our final thoughts, Rika, I know when we spoke before, you had mentioned, and this is sort of coming away from the gossip for a sec, but about about your thoughts on getting teachers to incorporate mindfulness into their daily routine with the kids. And I know you had heard a story about a teacher that was doing that. Could you just share that with us?
Sure, not a problem. I had heard this amazing story and I even get goosebumps thinking about it because it just cheers me up so much. There was a school where a male teacher was working at, and he wanted to work with the most vulnerable children. That was what he had a passion for. So when he got into this school, they gave him the most difficult class because he was the newbie. They thought, well, nobody wants to work with that class. We're just going to give it to the new teacher. And he had previously done some mindset training in a previous life, something else that he had done. And he thought, well, I'm doing for myself every morning before school, I'm doing, meditation and I'm doing breathing work, in particular the breathing work. And the breathing work is something that really got him to be calm with the children. And so something that would upset another teacher or get the other teachers to walk out of that classroom, it just didn't faze him. It didn't bother him at all. And so the students started realizing that, oh, well, we can't upset this teacher. And so, they already started changing towards him. But then he had a thought, okay, well, why don't I start doing this breathing work and this meditation and mindfulness with the students? Because they were a little bit more open towards him because they realized that, oh, okay, well, we can't upset him, clearly.
Yeah.
He's as calm as a cucumber. And so he started doing these mindfulness activities with the children. Oh my goodness. And will you have it within about 6 weeks, that whole class was a changed class. They became known as the best class in that whole school. And all the teachers were so jealous. They couldn't believe it. How did this man do it? And so he started teaching them how to do the mindfulness and the breathing and all the activities in the classroom. And this school of vulnerable children just turned around and became a well-known school for great academics, for children who were vulnerable, turned into something amazing. And yeah, it's just this amazing story. And now he's actually left that job and now he's a coach. So he now coaches teachers on how to incorporate mindfulness in the classroom. So it's such an amazing story.
It's a beautiful story. I just love that so much. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like that needs to get out into the world. So what are the best places if someone wanted to contact you, particularly in Australia? What area of Australia are you in?
I'm in Perth.
Okay,
in Western Australia.
Okay, so so if someone did want to contact you to know more, what's the best options?
Sure, so that's fine. Thank you. I am on LinkedIn, so I'm very active on LinkedIn. That's where I hang out the most. I grew up on older years. I grew up on Facebook and then Instagram and that. Oh no, but I'm on LinkedIn now.
Okay, cool.
So if you want to find me, you'll probably find me on the other platforms as well. But LinkedIn is where I hang out the most. Or you can connect with me just on my website. So I've got a website called workplaceculturehub.com. So you can go there. And also you can email me if you want to get in contact with me. It's support@rikawhelan.com.
Okay. Cool. And are there any books that you would recommend for personal or professional development?
I would really recommend any book of John Maxwell. So John Maxwell is really just one of my favorite authors. he talks a lot to leaders about relationships. But, his books are not relevant just for leaders, although they're written for leaders. For teachers, just remember, teachers, we are leaders in our classrooms. We are, because we've got little human beings who follow our every move. And as teachers, we have to realize that your voice is sometimes more important than the child's parent. Because the child will come home and say, oh, my teacher said, and then the parent might want to argue with that, and then the child will not want to have a bar of that. So as teachers, we are leaders. So any John Maxwell book, my favorite one is The 5 Levels of Leadership. That's my favorite one. And it really teaches us how we can build relationship with anybody, and how you can move from a level 1 to being a level 5 leader, where ultimately you have influence over your team, but positive influence, not negative influence.
Of course. Yeah, he has a great a journal, a diary, right, where you can write down everything that I buy for my best friend who's a principal. I buy for her every year, and I put little quotes in there and things. But he's got quotes, and so it's brilliant. He's great. What is one piece of advice, Rika, you think that you might give to yourself when you were a first-year teacher?
Oh boy, what would I say to myself? That's a good one. I think what I would say to myself is trust your gut more, and don't feel so uncertain. Because as new teachers, we just feel so uncertain. It's this new landscape of a place that we're embarking on, and it's this new journey. And I wish that I had just trusted my gut a little bit more, but instead I was a follower. I was just constantly following other people, constantly listening to what other people were saying. And although I definitely in the back of my mind, I knew better. And, but yeah, trust your gut. And I think, trusting your gut can be, airy fairy. Some people have said that as well. What does that actually really mean? Well, I think you just follow your intuition. If you think you have a thought that could work, try it out. You can try that out, because sometimes we have imposter syndrome. We think, oh no, I'm just a first-year teacher, I can't do that, or I can't suggest that. No, if you want to make a difference in the lives of children, trust your gut, trust your intuition, and speak up.
I love that. That's so powerful. Thank you. And lastly, what 3 things are you grateful for today?
I'm grateful for community, the community that teaching brings. Community is just so amazing. I've still got teaching friends back in South Africa. We correspond literally on a daily basis. So community is the one thing I love most about teaching. The other thing that I'm grateful for is having to work with so many amazing families. So whilst I was new, I didn't realize the impact I was even having on the families. After later, when I had my own children, I realized that, I really could have been a better teacher to those families who I judged a lot. So families, just the amazing impact we have on working with families. I'm truly grateful for that. And then I think the final thing I'm grateful for, and just from a faith perspective, I'm a person of faith, is just my faith that has really guided me over my time. And I know a lot of people are, have something that they believe in, and I think having something to believe in sometimes just gets us through the toughest times. So I'm grateful for my faith.
Thank you so much, Rika. I'm so grateful for you coming on the show today, and just so incredibly grateful that you are pushing forward with this whole idea of eradicating gossip, because I know so many schools will change once they invest in something like this, So I wish you so much success and prosperity as you move forward in your business. And I will definitely be keeping in touch with you, because it's just been amazing chatting with you and getting all of this fantastic advice and value. So just thank you so much. I look forward to the next time we chat.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I really look forward to our next chat. It's been so much fun.
Awesome. Yay!
Yeah, we did it. That was amazing. So good.
So amazing. I'm so gonna cut that first part and be like, Just chatting with Rika. I'm like, I got to put it out there somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that I think it's so good if you can go a little bit off script and they just go with it. So it was so good.
I know, because that's totally what I did. Like, I didn't even really ask everything that was here, but we talked about exactly what I wanted to talk about. And it was so natural, I think, talking with you, that it was brilliant. Like, I love, that's what I always aspire for all of my podcast interviews, is to go like that. Normally I do go on script, but you were just saying exactly what I wanted you to be saying. So
Yay! I know I've had a couple of people on my podcast as well, and some people just don't give you anything to work with. So I've had that. So the very first interview I did, obviously we both felt nervous, but it was just not a very good one. So I'm kind of glad the very first one was the worst one, because after that I was like, okay, well, how can I help this person feel a little bit more relaxed? Because I think she was so stressed that she just couldn't. Like you and I just had a lovely chat. It was just like all that I was missing was my coffee, you know. Whereas with her, I think it was too formal. It was just too formal. And so after that, I've just tried to keep it chill.
Yeah, exactly. My biggest mistakes with my big mistake with my first one, it was a great interview and I didn't push record.
Oh no.
Yeah. And I'm still trying to reschedule that interview. That was back in January. I'm still trying to reschedule it. She has something, I have something, but luckily I'm going to Canada. So I told her, I'm like, hey, I'm going to Canada. Like, now our time zones will be pretty even, so I can talk to her after school. So I'm hoping I can still catch her. I was like, I couldn't believe it. It was so great. And but now, and also my earlier podcast outlines were too long. There was like too much going on. Now I've focused on like 5 kind of areas or 5 questions. And I find that's better, because I've also got the final questions as well. So it's definitely like a learning curve as you move forward, for sure.
Yeah, no, I had someone on my podcast yesterday from Texas. And so it was so lovely. We just also just chatted so lovely. So I'm finally happy that I'm not feeling so super nervous anymore, because at the beginning I was feeling nervous, so nervous. Whether I'm the guest or whether I was hosting, I was just feeling so super nervous.
Yeah.
But I think the more you do it, the more relaxed you get.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you start to know good questions. You start to know how you can play on something that someone says and work towards that. Or like I said, I always have the 5 questions, so at least my guests know where I'm heading. And so if they're not giving me too much, I just go into those questions, and
so good.
That's fine.
I want to quickly say the most stressful interview I had was I had my podcast coach, that one that I told you, Stephanie Gass. So what she does is she does guesting for her students. So I bought her course, Podcast Pro University. And so she takes you through like the 13 steps of setting up everything correctly. The other course is the 5,000 one that I really want, but anyway, I can't have that one. Anyway, so she was a guest on my show.
Nice.
And I was so nervous because, I mean, she's like my coach. And now I'm interviewing her. So she did most of the talking, because she is also very organized. So you know, like you had to send the questions that you wanted her to answer like 3 weeks in advance, and things like that. So I think that's why I was so stressed, because it was super organized. And I mean, with you just sent it to me, I think sometime this morning or last night. I don't even know when, but I wasn't stressed that you hadn't sent me anything yet. Like I was like, she hasn't sent anything yet.
I know.
But, it's only fine, Whereas with her, it was like, ooh, and I get it, because she's busy and she's doing coaching and she's doing this and she's doing that. And she's a 7-figure entrepreneur. So I'm guessing she's pulled in, all sorts of different places. But I just felt so nervous, and it wasn't natural. So she mainly did most of the talking. And that podcast episode did really well and gained a lot of new followers for me, which is good. But no, I like this style much more.
Yeah, me too. And my biggest mistake, which is why I don't get these outlines on in time, is I schedule too many interviews in a week. So so the problem is like, because I did that, I should have actually done like 2 a week and then just focused on those 2 interviews and say like Sunday, okay, I'm going to make sure I get the outlines out.
Yeah.
Because now I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got, 2 tomorrow. And I also just did those outlines like yesterday.
Yeah.
But now my last one is Monday because I'm flying next week. So now I think what I'm going to do is focus on getting those chunk of podcasts that I've done, edited, sorted, looking good, released, and then I'll find more people.
Yeah.
And then I'll do it differently. Then I'll be like, I won't go out and contact 60 people at once. I'll be like, which is like kind of what I did. And when people cancel or reschedule, and I'm like, no problem. Because you're like literally the 5th of 5 in this week. Not you, but like, I mean, when someone cancels, I'm like, that's not a problem because I have so many other podcasts going on. But I've definitely learned
all means
that.
cancel. Yeah.
What?
I said by all means cancel.
Yeah, by all means cancel. I'm like, no problem. That's great. And now when I go forward, I will contact 2 people and I'll focus on those 2 people and I'll make those, and I will be organized where I will send them the outline a week in advance because I'm only dealing with 2 people instead of dealing with 5 people. So that is absolutely, I was so excited to get all these people responding. Right. So I'm like, oh, cool. I'm going to do everybody.
Oh no. I did the same thing. I posted on that need a guest. And so I also got a lot of people filled out my Google sheet to kind of apply, because I didn't want people to just book in, because my podcast is for women of faith in leadership. I even had some men on apply, and I just don't feel like that's right. I don't want a man on there because it kind of defeats the purpose. What's a man going to say that a woman
wants to listen to? It's not your audience either, right?
It's not it's the same thing as if it was a men in leadership and then there's a woman on there.
Totally.
I mean, it's just not gonna and anyway, so I just chose a couple of people that looked like really like, because as I did that last year, and then I thought, okay, 2024, here I come, gonna have the same nearly 60 people on there, but then I just ran out of capacity towards the end of the year, and I thought, well, what am I doing? Like, why am I trying to schedule all these people? Because it's taking away time from the gossip thing that I want to do.
Right, exactly, which is what you want
to focus on. So I just had a couple of people. I'm now doing once a month, and so what my strategy there is I've got like an app that I paid a once-off fee for. I think I told you about, I don't know if I told you, but it's like Calendly, but I don't use Calendly. This is called Tidy Cal. Okay. And I paid like $67 for it. So for me, that's not a lot of money. And so now I can, it's like Tidycal, where people can book directly into your calendar. We don't have to go back and forth with the calendars.
Yeah, I need that.
And on that, you can set the date and the times that you are available for podcast interviews. So if I only want to be available on Thursdays and only for 1 hour, or what, you can give a time frame, then that's the time. Then they have to book in that and stick to that. And if they can't make it, then I always say that those times don't suit, just get into contact with me and we can look for something different. But that's now really helped me, because now I only have 1 guest on my podcast per month. And like this lady from Texas, it didn't work for her, that the timings just didn't work out. So obviously then we just had a look. It was 8:30 for her and it was 9:30 for me in the end. And that worked out, that worked out really well. So yeah, it's just a strategy for later on, maybe if you want to, invest in it, where people, especially for your mindset coaching, if you want people to book into your calendar versus constantly going back and forth.
Right. No, it's very good advice.
Game changer.
Yeah, that is a game changer. I'm definitely going to do that. I need to do that. It's on my list for sure, because I agree with you. Yep. It's helped a lot when people had a calendar app that I could just quickly go in and book a time to.
Oh yeah, because that's how. Yeah, because you did a time on my calendar, didn't you? I sent you a link to my calendar. Yes. That was it. So that was a different link, because I've got different times set up for different things. So yeah. So awesome.
Yeah. Cool. All right, Rika. Well, I'm gonna let you go, but thank you again so
Yes.
much for everything, for all the valuable, well, just all the value that you added today to my life
No, I
and my
was just
podcast.
so happy.
And yeah, and I look forward to chatting again soon. We'll definitely keep in touch.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Cool. Have a
All
good
right.
one. We'll chat to you
You
soon.
too.
Bye.
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 Bye.